Yo, Skid, what's up everybody, man? Y'all know who I be. It's your man Pooh, CYGG. Now today we're going to be talking about Madden 21 and the different categories or the different areas of the game, and should you consider buying the game straight off release, wait until the price drop, or actually skipping the whole game in general. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this video. Number 1, the soundtrack. Now the reason why I chose to address the soundtrack is because it's the first thing you hear after you press the button to get into the game. Now this year the EA soundtrack was not that great, and the reason why I say that because usually I can tolerate Madden's music or NBA Live's music way more than I can tolerate 2K's music. But this year, even within the 10-hour trial, I found myself getting very irritated by the music, man, especially these two songs. Oh my god. Now, well, the music actually plays the biggest factor is within the yard, and the reason why that is because the yard is supposed to give us that nostalgia of NFL Street, and within NFL Street there was no commentary during the gameplay. There was just music to keep you immersed within the game or keep you hyped while doing all types of crazy new moves and crazy stylish catches and making all types of highlight plays. Whereas within the yard, the soundtrack doesn't really serve that big of a purpose, because sometimes you hear some of the music being played from last year, and not only that, but when you're in solos you only hear like 2 different instrumentals, and the games can be actually longer in the solos, which can kind of cause the same instrumental to be repetitive. So that is my viewpoint on the soundtrack. It wasn't the best this year, and it doesn't really add to the mode that it's supposed to. Number 2, the UI. Now, for those who don't know what the UI is, it's basically the user interface, and that's basically the screen where you get to choose exhibition mode, franchise mode. Basically, the screen display anytime you're choosing anything or moving, to make any type of selections to any type of things that you plan on going to, etc. The reason why I wasn't so hyped about this is because, for like the people who, may have not played Madden before or may have not even played NBA Live before, these people are basically going to look at this and be like, wow, this is so new. I haven't seen this before. Now, if you are an NBA Live player, now you understand this screen is very familiar. Now, basically, this is just a screen from, NBA Live 19, except it's basically the football version, and it's the same way when you go to shop for items because it's the same type of system being used. Now this is where it kind of makes me feel like, yeah, they basically grabbed that and they copied and pasted it in a football version, but most people won't notice that. But that's kind of a thing that I happen to notice. Maybe that's a nitpick, but that is something that I kind of happen to notice. Number 3, face of the franchise. Now, face of the franchise story is actually decent this year. Now, the reason why I say that is because you actually get to have more college choices this year, and you actually get to play at a different position this year. Now, where the story actually kind of takes a turn is when it gets to the combine mode that was supposed to be marketed and that was showcased to us as though we were going to get the full combine experience. Now, for a lot of people who used to play the old Madden that loved the way of thinking that the left stick and the right stick were going to be the way you determine the speed of your character or how fast you tried to run to try to break the timer in the 40, that is not in the game this year. Instead, basically, it's a quick tab event within the 40-yard dash, basically making the 40-yard dash feel like a fight scene in God of War. And that is something that I really didn't enjoy, that kind of takes away from the whole story. Now, of course, I can get into detail and talk about certain things, but that right there, the combine experience kind of like makes you feel like, wow, this is what I want to get to the combine for? No. Which leads me to my next point, because we can't talk about face of the franchise, but not talk about where that leads you to, which is number 4. The franchise mode. Basically, nothing was really done to this mode at all. We thought we were going to basically get a day 1 patch, which is the reason why I took so long to basically make my Madden review, is because they told us we were going to have a day 1 patch, which was going to basically bring in new relocation teams and stuff like that, when basically everything from the relocation teams to certain screens and all that stuff is basically the same as last year. What makes it worse, we thought we were going to be able to actually pick our abilities, and you can't even pick the abilities. They basically lied to us about that, or maybe that's coming in the later patch or whatever. Otherwise, I mean, it's still underwhelming. Especially when you start off the game editing your character's face, you know, for the face of the franchise, and you realize that that tool that you can use to edit the face of your player on the face of the franchise, you can't use that same tool to edit the face of your franchise player in the franchise mode. And that is another thing that is very irritating. It's almost like you're seeing all of these other things being, you know, basically introduced to other parts of the game, but this part or this specific mode is basically being pushed towards the back. You get to use the mouthpieces and other things in other modes, but this mode basically can't get any of that. And bro, that, oh my goodness. And honestly, that's just something we gotta deal with, man. And that's just how the game will play within this certain mode this year. And since we're talking about how the game will play, let's get into gameplay. And that is at number 5, gameplay. Now, I can go on and on for days talking about the gameplay, but I would basically not. I mean, honestly, to summarize it up for you guys, a lot of things haven't changed from last year. The gameplay is pretty similar to last year. Also, I mean, the running is actually a bit smoother. You can't utilize the linebacker and fly all over the screen like you could in past Maddens. And to me, I'm not gonna lie, I actually like that. You gotta actually be in certain positions to utilize, you know, your player. The blocking is a little better at times, not gonna lie. And then at times it's like, why? But if you basically want to get a full analysis of how the gameplay has actually truly emerged from last year, then I advise you go to the channel of Ryan Moody, who basically breaks down gameplay clips every day and talks about where the game has faltered at. And to be honest with you, that's all I can tell you, because that, I mean, oh, and another problem would be when you're basically even if you got the game downloaded, or even if you have a disc copy of the game, apparently for some reason, and I've experienced this while playing the exhibition game, the game lags and stutters as if you're playing an online head-to-head game. So the game is registering itself as though I'm playing against another opponent from across the world, but I'm playing the game in my living room, and it still lags and stops and stutters between hikes and formations, and I don't understand that. And there's like, oh my god. But the only part where I can say the gameplay is at its best is the yard. Number 6, the yard. Now, I'm going to be talking about both the positives and the negatives of the yard. Now, first we're going to get into the positives. The positives of the yard is clearly the number one thing you see once you start making your character, and that is the customization. The customization is great. I'm not going to lie, man. There's a lot of things you can do to make your character look good, and you know what's going to make you want to play good, man. Also, playing the game with your friends online is fun. And as said before, man, this game kind of reminds you of NFL Street. It makes you feel like you're playing the modern day NFL Street game. It brings back that nostalgia. Also, another thing that kind of stands out is due to the gameplay not being as great, and most people considering it, even myself, not being the most simulation, that's where the yard kind of benefits off of it, is because you're so in tune, or you have the thought of going in doing the most craziest things to the point you don't really expect the best or most realistic gameplay, because everything that you think or your expectation for the most realistic gameplay goes out the window, because you're trying to play street style. You're trying to do the most flashiest things. So the gameplay basically fits this mode best, because the expectation for the most realistic things to occur does not happen here. Now, another thing is the mini stadiums you get to play at. Right now it's supposed, like, I've only unlocked 3, but there are supposed to be actually more stadiums, and they're supposed to be bringing in more stuff basically throughout the year. The gear that's in the store is nice, and that's, so far, those are my positives about the mode. Now we're going to get into the negatives. Now, basically, one of the biggest problems within the yard is the mobile transfer. Now, the reason why I say this is because there has been times where something has been on sale on console and on sale on the mobile version of the game. But the problem where it happens is you can buy that same thing off the mobile store and it doesn't transfer to the console, even though they say that a lot of things transfer over. Now, what happens is there's plenty inconsistencies with what can transfer over and what cannot. And that's a huge problem because a lot of players miss out on a lot of things that they can get. The second thing would be, the store. Now, the reason why I say this is because I think that EA kind of employs this method to try to get you to basically spend Madden Cash. Now, me personally, I bought Madden Cash so you wouldn't have to, because I seen that it was $8, and even then, once I got the Madden Cash, which was like 1,000 Madden Cash for $8, I went into the store and I realized there's not much gear to really even purchase with this. Now, to me personally, I'm happy that certain things that they, drop to a certain price, but even then, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't really even think it's worth it half of the time. And the reason why they also do this is because they give you as few credits as possible, so it can make you feel like you want to jump the hurdle by getting Madden Cash, which is another thing that I kind of seen that kind of made me feel like, I don't really enjoy that. And last but not least would be the gameplay. There's a lot of gameplay bugs and glitches within the yard right now that has to be fixed. There's times where my scoreboard has disappeared even after scoring, and like I don't know why. And then there's plenty of people that talked about how their whole field turned completely white. And then there's times where I'm editing my character, and just because I wear the same gloves in my away uniform or something like that, it makes my character lose a glove anytime I try to put that same glove on the home uniform. So basically, if you're wearing the same gloves in both uniform sets, you're gonna lose a glove with the other set. Now that I don't get that. It doesn't make sense. And due to the AI not being the best in gameplay overall, this leaks over into the yard. When I'm doing solo events in the yard, oh my god, it has been times where I have purposely left a receiver wide open just because I got tired of playing those long games and I wanted the computer to go ahead and score, and the computer would not recognize that it has somebody wide open and it would still throw the ball into double coverage. I'm literally leaving somebody wide open. Throw it to him, and they will still throw the ball into double coverage or try to scramble without finding an open target. And I'm not gonna lie, that right there itself is stressful, and I don't understand that. But then you can be guarding them and they will throw the ball to you. Then I don't get it. I don't understand that part. It makes no sense. Oh, and let's not forget the randoms. Oh, that's one thing you're not gonna like about the yard. If you thought 2K players didn't like terrible randoms, you're not gonna like terrible randoms in the yard, because oh my goodness, yeah, find your friends to play with, because it can end badly with randoms online. And speaking of modes, let's talk about the #1 mode that a lot of people like to play, and that would be MUT. So at number 7 we have MUT. I don't play this mode, so yeah, it's not really anything to review. So let's get to the end of this. Now, this concludes my wrap up for the game. Now, basically, if you're thinking whether you should buy the game, wait for the price drop, or skip the game in general. Now, if you're just somebody who sees the yard and you're like, man, I want to play that game because of the yard, I want to get on there with my friends, I've been in quarantine, we haven't had any type of sports games to play, I really need this and this can really help me get through it, then I would consider buying it, just so you can get ahead on grinding your gear and getting your player flashy, because waiting until the price drop, a lot of people have more gear than you, and you'll be thinking to yourself, why don't I have that? That's the only reason why. But if you're actually looking for an immersive football experience, if you're actually looking for a game that's going to make you feel like you're within the NFL, the best simulation, style of gameplay, the most realistic version of football, then I'm going to be honest, you should skip this whole game in general, because it is not going to give you that. Like, honestly, on a scale from 1 to 10, Madden 21 is like a 3.5 or a 4, and that's solely based on the yard and stuff like that. But other than that, the franchise mode, nothing was touched. The gameplay was fairly tweaked, but not to where it's supposed to be. I guess it's still muddy out there for the players who play it. Online head-to-head, I haven't really just played too much of that. Like I said, yes, it's like a 3.5 maybe to a 4. It's between that area. I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't get too hyped about the game. I would say that much. I wouldn't be too hyped about the game. But go down to the comments below, man. Let me know what you guys think. Until next time, it's your man Pooh, CYGG, and I'm out.